Hello everybody, this is Malti Lalwani and welcome to another video by yours truly. One of the transitions that we make from childhood to adulthood is the realization and the maturity that as humans we are imperfect. And that is part and parcel of being spiritual beings, having a physical experience and having a physical experience on earth. As children, we see the world as perfection. We see our adults, our parents, our caregivers as flawless. We see things in black and white, and everyone around us as being perfect and ideal. And as we slowly grow up and mature, we start to realize that human nature is actually full of imperfections and flaws, abundant with opportunities for growth, choice, transformation. There are mistakes made as part of the deal, and growth happens as a result of this. And so you go from children to adults in a gradual process. We encounter a different paradigm of learning to have to accept the situation as it is. We accept others for their faults and weaknesses. Not always a smooth process. This is in theory, okay? Now, along the way, hopefully, we're meant to make the corresponding realization that we also need to accept ourselves as well, because accepting others is genuinely not attainable without first accepting ourselves. For a lot of us, this is a very scary prospect. How do I accept myself with all my flaws, physical, emotional, I'm not successful enough. I don't measure up. I'm not good enough. What will people think? Our own misgivings and who we are. It's extremely, extremely challenging. And it comes as a process of overly being hard on ourselves and learning how to be kinder to ourselves, not judging ourselves so harshly, and not being able to let go. Again, all this is in theory. When we actually run with it and we put it into practice, everyone is individual and is in their own journey of figuring this out. So we start, to make efforts to start accepting ourselves a little bit more than we used to. We know the importance of loving ourselves unconditionally, not easy to do. We have self-help tools, affirmations, mantras. We take courses, we read books. We remind ourselves whenever we find ourselves lapsing into judgment from our old ways. And always, always driving home the point that you have to love yourself. And then there is this contradiction that if I love myself, it means I'm being arrogant. So it's really challenging. By the way, to love yourself doesn't actually mean to be conceited and egotistical. It's a healthy self-love, liking yourself and respecting yourself as you would the next person. Sometimes self-acceptance just is an uphill battle that seems so out of reach. And this is particularly challenging if your childhood and your formative years were very challenging and you didn't have that family kind of nurturing love, security to put you on the right path as you figured out life as an adult. Now, let's go back to childhood. Let's go back to what the child sees in the world. So as children, the messages that we receive from adults and caregivers is we are taught the importance of striving, always trying and striving to be good. G-O-O-D, good. Good behavior is often reinforced and rewarded. We get punished for our bad behavior. Bad behavior is so-called punished, to put it simplistically. And it is during childhood that we are most exposed to these messages from our authority figures. That there are qualities and character traits which are acceptable, which are labeled with a positive connotation. Work hard, be polite, say please, say thank you, whatever it is that the parent wants to teach the child. We are made to feel that we should never have had negative qualities. Oh, this is not good, this is bad, I'm very, very there is this kind of interaction between the child and their caregivers. Childhood is a very vulnerable time of life. It is in childhood that we learn certain values unconsciously or very incidentally. We may learn to feel bad about ourselves. We may learn sense of shame and guilt. This is how it's communicated with us. And we also receive the subconscious message from our adults that if we display negative traits, we will be rejected by others. And if we display positive traits, we will continue to be, we will, get the approval of everyone. So this is a black and white thing. So let me give you an example. So a child just wants to be a child and just relaxes and lies down on the grass. And along comes a parent and looks at the child and says, I've never seen anyone so lazy as you. And the message to the child is very sensitive, especially. They pick up the message that it's wrong, completely wrong, to lie down and relax. And they make association in their minds that they should never allow themselves to do that again because it's labeled as bad. It is highly likely that childhood is the space where we make many unconscious decisions to never allow ourselves to be bad. Yes, children have a rebellious streak. They kind of play this tug of war game with you of who has more assertiveness and more power. But sometimes this is where some of the wounds are inflicted. We tell ourselves we must not allow ourselves to do that because we were made to feel a sense of shame, especially when we received feedback from our adults and caregivers. We tell ourselves, never allow ourselves to have negative traits. Never relax, because that's bad. That's a very negative thing. And perhaps you know someone who is an overly giving person, for example. Someone who always puts others first, for example. Now, those are not bad. Those are wonderful qualities to have. So, where did they learn it from? And did they make up their minds that they were only going to be giving and they were only going to be hardworking, but not give themselves the leeway and the allowance to be the opposite? Okay, so you meet a person who is overly giving, puts others first, and then you make the association. That's a gem of a person. True. That's a gem of a person. Never in my wildest dreams would I ever associate them to have a malicious or selfish, self-centered bone in their body. It defies logic. You would not expect a person who has never gotten angry to have a bad temper. You would never, because we only know a portion of people, what they show us. So you'd never expect a person who is 100% hardworking to have a lazy side. The opposite polarity is impossible. So when you meet someone who is always unselfish, altruistic, always puts others first, this is just my example, never in your wildest dreams would you associate them to be self-centered, focused on themselves. It defies logic. You may meet other people who are gems, calm, kind, patient, congenial. You'd never expect that they have an impatient side, an anxious side, getting really irrational and reactive. You may apply this understanding to yourself. You may pride yourself on having certain qualities. There's nothing wrong with having good qualities. So you may say, I pride myself on being this, this, this. I would never be the opposite. So if people say that I'm intelligent, and I fully believe that I'm intelligent, I would never actually believe that never in my wildest dreams, I could never lose a sense of my rationality, my logic, and my ability to reason. In other words, I am always intelligent. There's no opposite to that. Now, in 2012, I was introduced to this fabulous book. I do apologize that because of the camera, all the words on the cover and the back are inverted. But this book is entitled The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, and it's written by Debbie Ford. And before you start thinking, what is she doing promoting the darkness and dark side on a video? Not at all. Because the subtitle of this book is Reclaiming Your Power, Your Creativity, Your Brilliance, and Your Dreams. It is, in essence, a book and a guide that teaches you how to reclaim your sense of self-acceptance, your authenticity, your wholeness, understanding the darker aspects of you. What are the darker aspects of you? Does it mean that inside of you is a evil person waiting to come out? Not at all. When we talk of dark side, we use another word, and it's called shadow. Let me explain what it says on the back. What are you hiding from yourself? What are you hiding from yourselves? Sometimes when we meet someone and we're very triggered by the selfishness of their behavior, we find ourselves disproportionately reacting and angry. The question is, why do we find ourselves disproportionately angry with the selfishness of a friend we know, or the laziness of a colleague, the arrogance of a family member, or the rudeness of a stranger? Why do certain things get to us so easily and so intensely without logical reason? And Debbie Ford explains in this book, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, that the emotions and traits that trigger us are the ones that we have denied in ourselves. We have stopped allowing ourselves to feel and have those character traits. She explains how all of us, and this is no judgment, all of us, either consciously or unconsciously, deny parts of ourselves, character traits in ourselves that we are ashamed of, that we're not comfortable with, and we reject those aspects of our nature rather than giving ourselves the space and the freedom to live authentically. This is a fabulous guide, and I am fully recommending that you read it because it's going to make you go, oh my goodness. The Dark Side of the Light Chasers helps you open your mind up to the possibility that as a human being on earth, on a journey, the character traits that you do not associate with yourself are character traits that you could possibly have hidden from yourself, and that acknowledging our so-called negative traits and weaknesses and emotions is the key clues to reclaiming our wholeness and authenticity again. And it opens the door to genuinely embracing and accepting ourselves for who we are, accepting all of me, accepting all of you. This book is thus the missing key to helping us bridge the journey to genuine, empowered self-acceptance. It's an enlightening guide into understanding the parts of ourselves that we have denied, our shadow sides, our dark sides, which is not basically, it's not about evil. That's a very black and white concept. We subconsciously are ashamed of certain character traits and what we call weaknesses, and we're completely disassociated from them in childhood because we were made to feel bad. So let me illustrate. If you had a parent in your childhood who made you feel ashamed about you're so lazy as a child, it is likely that you will go through lengths to show the world that you aren't lazy, and in showing the world that you aren't lazy, you are worthy of acceptance from others. And so you deny yourself the leeway and the allowance to be laid back, to be relaxed. And in your value system, where that has come from is nothing but hard work. We don't rest. We don't relax. We don't take a break. We don't have flexibility. And unconsciously, you grow up and you become a parent who imposes this and other values on your children without giving him the leeway for balance. In other words, there's a time to work, there's a time to relax, rest and recharge. Nothing but consistent labor is permissible. Just go at full capacity. There's no such thing as rest. If we rest, we're lazy. This kind of thinking comes in. What has actually happened deep down inside is, on some level, you have denied that part in yourself, What is the part in yourself that you have every right to relax, every right to take it easy? And when you have rejected this idea of working at a leisurely pace or taking a rest, that character trait becomes your shadow. It's the part of yourself that you're denying and rejecting. The reason it's very important to understand this concept is because as children, we may have unconsciously sown the seeds to hide parts of ourselves that we have learned not to accept in ourselves, so that we think everything is fine and we show the world everything is fine. But when we become adults, the universe has different ideas. The universe works to show you that they exist, to bring it out, and the universe wants you to address them and just reconcile this denied part of you. As an adult, the universe is constantly, and I mean constantly, putting you in situations where you are constantly being made aware that you have a part of you or parts of you that you've denied, that you have a shadow self, that you have a dark side. Parts of your human nature that you used to have, you have every right to have, but you have since rejected, hidden, and completely refused to embrace, and trying to make themselves known to you through interactions with people and experiences, through your encounters with others that trigger a sense of anger. When you're triggered by the guy at the supermarket or the rude driver or something you don't like in someone, oh, that person's got an attitude problem. I would never do that. Bang, shadow. We get into interactions and relationships with people who push our buttons. And this is what I want to highlight to you. That situation of pushing our buttons is the very clue that the universe gives you that says, shadow, look at it and see what it means. Things which push our buttons bring out strong emotions and reactions in us that reflect to us, if only we could understand the language, that we have parts of ourselves, personality traits, and things that we've always loved as children, and we have blocked them out from ourselves. Imagine you have a wonderful mansion. It's a mansion, it's got 25, 30 rooms, it's a palace. And every room has a door which is open, and every room has a different decor and character and purpose. Maybe the drawing room, it may be the study, that sort of thing. Over the years, you became very uncomfortable with certain rooms and you started to lock certain. You just thought that certain rooms were not good enough to show the world. And you blocked off. You blocked off the light, the air, you closed the windows. You denied that those rooms were there to also enhance the house. In the dark side of the light chasers, the guidance provided shows us that we can never be whole or reclaim our personal power, brilliance, and creativity without acknowledging and then integrating the traits we've rejected in ourselves and giving ourselves the permission to say, I'm okay too. I can relax. I work hard, but just because I want to relax or have a need to relax doesn't make me a bad person. We can never embrace our true selves and accept ourselves if we do not accept both the positive aspects and what we call the negative aspects of ourselves. And negative might not even be negative to you. It just may be negative because some adult or some caregiver or some friend said that's a negative part of you. And perhaps as a child, you did not want to displease that adult. Debbie Ford, the author of the book, goes on to explain that even our dark sides are very important strengths on our journey, and embracing and accepting them is the key to healing. It is our key to healing. Life is constantly reflecting this kind of information to us. So, in a nutshell, you will only be able to see it in another person. You'll only be able to see that trait that you have denied in yourself in another person if you have rejected that trait in yourself. So, let's just say that from very young, you learned a certain concept that we never go out, we never have fun. There's no such thing. Fun is not practiced in our family. So you've rejected that, you've grown up to say, We don't laugh and we don't have fun. It's just not part of our value system. You meet other people as adults, and you meet someone who's so fun-loving and they just enjoy life, whether it is to take a vacation, to go somewhere and just take in the beauty and the pleasures of life. Now, if that is shadow, something you've denied in yourself, that's going to be your trigger. And you're going to be very angry by saying, what a lazy, carefree person, frivolous. They don't have responsibility. That's not the way to live. Bang. That's not that person. It is your shadow. It is the trait that you have unconsciously, and it's very unconscious or subconscious, that you've denied in yourself. I'll give you another example. We need to pay attention to what pushes our buttons. It's not so much feedback that the other person is guilty of something. It is more feedback that the exact same thing inside of us is something we've rejected. And we seem to attract people who have the thing in them or display the thing that we rejected in ourselves. So here's another example, I promise. You pride on yourself on being a humble person. You're very humble, extremely humble, and you would never think of yourself as haughty or arrogant, You'd never think of yourself as being full of yourself. No, that's not me. I'm not proud. I'm not arrogant. I'm certainly not rude. And then you meet someone, and that someone is extremely arrogant and extremely self-centered. And that is your trigger. It really bothers you. Oh, I really can't stand him. He's so arrogant. That person's actually pushed your buttons. You're seeing the trait in that person because you have denied it in yourself. You have denied the acknowledgement that deep down inside, you too could be that way. And you have those traits in you, that you could be a little bit arrogant and non-humble too. The fact that you may have denied or hidden this trait will be evidence when you find yourself becoming very hostile and defensive. If anybody says to you, well, perhaps there's a little bit of arrogance in you, and you go, oh, how dare you say that? And the more it is hidden and rejected, the greater the intensity of your reaction, the more you will be offended by that statement. That is a sign that you have rejected in yourself that which you see in another person. The Dark Side of the Light Chaser is an amazing book. What is guided there? I was already very hooked on this book by the time I reached page 7. The illustrations given in this book will help you understand what it is that it's driving at. The gift that you get out of the courage to acknowledge parts of yourself which you have denied is freedom. The freedom that you can free yourself from guilt and shame that caused you to lock up those rooms in your beautiful mansion, when in reality, your house is whole because all rooms are there. All rooms are an intrinsic part of your mansion. And only when each room has the door open and the windows open, the ventilation flowing through, circulating, does the true beauty and wholeness of the mansion's interior come out. And the inhabitants inside feel nourished as well as secure and taken care of. Ultimately, the dark side of the light chasers teaches us that we are all one and the same. We are all part of each other. What's in me is also in you because we share a commonality in terms of collective consciousness. I am all things, you are all things. You will never look at relationships with yourself and with others in the same way again. The realization is, for example, I could never be like my parents. I don't want to be like my parents. I hated my parents, and therefore I'm not like that. I have news for you. There's so much similarity in your parents that is in you and vice versa. I am what is in my parents, and my parents are what I am. I may have disliked them. I may have just cut off and formed a dark side, as in denied those traits. This makes this book pure gold. And I believe that when you're ready to take that step to do this work on yourself, well, this book and what is described in it is important work to reclaiming yourself, your power, creativity, brilliance, your dreams, your wholeness, self-acceptance, self-love, and authenticity, so that you can live the life as you were meant to be living as a spiritual being, having an earthly experience. Now, Deepak Chopra has actually said something. He says, in this profound book, Debbie Ford systematically outlines the steps to wholeness and transformation. And the fact that the qualities that you have denied prove to be important hidden strengths, perhaps a touch of laziness is what you may need. A touch of laziness is what the workaholic needs. Perhaps some selfishness can save a so-called altruistic person from resentment and exhaustion. Think about that. And we forgive ourselves. We come to the stage where we forgive ourselves and we reconcile what we call our darker impulses, because of the gifts they also offer to reclaim who we were, who we are, and who we were meant to be. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you in another video. Till then, be well and be loved. Blessings.